Token usage is driving incredible productivity gains. It's driving great efficiency in our organization. We're moving faster.
Hi everyone. I just want to take a moment just to say thank you all. This is to celebrate our 100th episode of the Built for Trust podcast. We've been at it for like 2 years, got over 3 million impressions so far. At every episode, we have almost 1,000 downloads. Just so happy how this has responded within our community. What we wanted to do with this podcast was really to introduce you to some of the thought leaders within the community. You really don't get to know someone until you actually sit down with them and just talk. I've gotten really great benefit and really great value from doing these, and I hope you did too. One of the most important things you're going to do today, follow us and subscribe on any of the platforms that you're consuming this podcast. Ready? Follow us and subscribe. Thank you. John, welcome to the Built for Trust podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me.
All right, awesome. So you did such a great keynote this morning. So I want to talk a little bit about that. But before we do that, I want to talk about you. All right, and a little bit about your career journey. So I know that you've been at eBay for a couple of decades now. So you were there when they were just kind of an internet first company, right?
I joined eBay early on, but not that early. So people always assume that I've been there 24 years. Oh, you were there before it IPO'd. No, eBay was already a public company long before I joined eBay. So eBay's 30 years old. I've been there 24 years.
Oh.
And so it was already a really, out of the pure startup mode company into that super hyper growth stage when I joined, which was really exciting.
Yeah, I bet. But also too, you think of it, it's a 30-year company. So it IPO'd after like 6 years, right? You don't have that anymore. It takes a lot longer to IPO, companies.
Yeah,
now.
I think the models today are very different, right? In terms of, the valuations are crazy. The private companies are bigger in some cases than eBay is.
Yeah.
Right. But even though we're a public company, so I think the models are very different today. I think eBay's one of those sort of very kind of traditional technology companies that's lasted.
Yeah.
Which is fun.
Yeah.
It's been a great place.
Yeah. Well, I think you got great company because it was kind of like eBay, it was Google, it was Amazon. It's like everybody was kind of once we kind of built the internet, these were the companies that were actually figured out business models, on how to operate on top of that environment, so.
And then there was the Yahoos and the AOLs the ones that aren't here anymore.
That is very true. That is very, very true.
I think that's what's, I think that's what's enduring about eBay is, it was one of those early pioneers. And has continued to evolve. And even though we're still in the fundamentally same business of being a commerce platform, we have continued to reinvent ourselves and doing a lot of new things these days. I think one of the most exciting right now is our whole live business, which is an entirely new sort of approach, for selling, bringing buyers and sellers together, right? It is.
So tell me about that.
Well, it's, it is live commerce, right? So it's a combination of entertainment and buying and selling, right? All wrapped together, right? So you're much like this show, you're following your favorite people, you're following your favorite sellers, but you're participating actively in the sales event. So it's more than just a transaction, right? It's entertainment, whether you're into trading cards, or whether you're into sports memorabilia. It is a really unique way, to buy and sell. I guess probably to say sell and buy, that in that sense. But I think it's a great new business that fits really well into eBay's sort of core portfolio. Bringing buyers and sellers together.
Yeah.
And also the community aspect. eBay's always been about community, and that these live shows are really communities of people getting together.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I never really kind of connected those dots. You're right. What this really is all about, this is primarily community, right? It's kind of folks who kind of share the same kind of interest around the things that they have to build. for the companies that they work for. And it's a way to bring buyers and sellers together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I never. Right. Well, maybe eBay want to buy an AI network.
Yeah. Who knows, right? I mean, yeah. Maybe GameStop will buy eBay.
Yeah. Maybe we should go shop. we should go shopping. The GameStop.
We just don't know.
Yeah.
But,
So anyway, I'm sorry. I kind of I digress a little bit there. But so let's talk a little bit about kind of your role. So actually when I first, got introduced to you from ParentTap, so I saw the CIO role and then also the site reliability engineering role. And so I'd never seen those put together before. So
and I think that, it's a somewhat of a unique combo. And, not a perfect fit, but there is some synergy between the two. Obviously, and I will kind of backtrack to say, I've done a lot of things at eBay over the 24 years, almost 25 years. And they've all kind of built on each other over that time. So, I started out in the architecture group, did some data architecture, some technical product management, and basically at one point took on running reliability engineering for eBay. And that was, my primary role. Then, I think continued to progress, and there was an opportunity also to take on running the IT part of eBay, which, again, like any technology company, our IT is separate to some level from our site. And so we have a group of engineers that builds the site, and we have another group of engineers that runs our internal IT.
yeah.
The intersection, of course, is that they all need to be available, and often the tools that we build on the IT side are the tools used to run the site, and identity is the same. So there is a lot of intersection between the two worlds. But basically, what happened? Why do I have both of them? Because at the time, my boss said, "Well, I don't want you to step away from reliability engineering, but I do like the idea of you stepping into this new role. So why don't you just do both?"
Oh. Sure. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, that sounds like double the work.
Yeah.
But
exactly what's going through my head.
yeah. But
Okay,
I've got a good team, and I do have I have one leader for reliability engineering and a number of leaders in the IT space, and I lean on them heavily, to run their areas, and they do a great job. So it works.
Okay.
And it is like I said, there's definitely some interesting synergy between the two roles.
Yeah. Well, and that one makes perfectly sense when you described it. You're right. It looks like eBay, runs a bunch of sites, and also it has its own IT for internal operations. All of that has to have high reliability. So it does cut across.
Yeah.
I never really thought about that, but
It's I mean, the expectations are very similar. I will say the thing that I've learned a lot about as I've stepped into the IT over the last 3 years is IT is very, very diverse, very heterogeneous. It's everything from vendor products to internally built products.
Yeah.
And the way I say it is it's wide and shallow, meaning we only have our employees and our contract workers that are our customers, whereas our site is more or less one thing. It's many microservices and things, but it's a very homogeneous thing. But there are millions of users, and the transaction volumes are very high. So the problem spaces, well, at the highest level, are the same. You want high resilience, high reliability. The way you tackle them is pretty different because one, you have super high volume in a very sort of homogeneous world. The other one, you have much lower volume in a very distributed, heterogeneous world.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. That's, I think that might be, I'm sure it's very common for companies that are very kind of web-based, like in their operations, versus a bank. That is, more kind of larger IT organizations, and there's more. It seems that there's much more separation.
Yeah.
With their financial products, which I never really understood because really money is nothing more than essentially a 1 or a 0, in a database. It's like that's all it is. But for some reason, there's all these policies and requirements and regulations all around those special 1s and 0s that creates so much process to make sure that you're highly secure and that people feel that safety and that trust with that institution.
No, absolutely. I think that compliance, is at a whole nother level, as a bank or a financial institution. And that's one of the things that eBay has learned as we, split from PayPal or spun off PayPal back in 2015 and built our own payment system. We have had to significantly up-level our compliance stature because we now are handling all of our customers' money. Not quite at the level of a bank, but essentially with all the banking regulations, which has changed dramatically how we have to think about compliance and the regulatory environment. And and because we are a global company that applies throughout the world, that is that the level of overhead you get there is very, very different than the space we were in before when we outsourced all of that to PayPal.
Makes sense. Okay. Hey, I'd like to shift a little bit in the conversation. So many points that you raised up, in this in the morning discussion, and then also when we did the Mythos and the Glasswing discussion as well, we started talking a little bit about build versus buy. So I thought maybe why don't we talk a little bit about that? So I think one of the major discussion points that I've been hearing about and been talking about with a lot of folks is their decision to either build AI infrastructure, for their teams, or to just basically do token consumption, for their requirements. So do you have any strong opinions on kind of where we are right now around that?
Yeah, I mean, I think right. Yeah, I think it absolutely. I mean, I think we are always going to be in that sort of, build or buy, space. Or decision point. And where are we at right now is I think, we have to do both, and we are doing both. Yeah. So you probably know eBay runs its own data centers. Yeah. Right. So this is, so we are a very build centric company. So we actually own our data center, or at least one of them. And we run the whole stack up from there. We're one of the last companies running a really big private cloud. So we're very bought into build, and the reason that build is good for us, and I think when we talk about the AI space, the same things apply, is we can tailor it to our needs exactly and be very cost effective. And this is what we've seen over the years is, people are like, well, why don't you move to the public cloud? Because we have built a very purpose-built cloud for eBay today that's very, very efficient at running eBay workloads. And as we look at AI, it's the same thing. We need to move fast. So that's the buy part. We want to use the latest, greatest models. Yeah. We want to have access to those models. We want to have access to that token capacity. But then as we scale and find efficiencies and find what works well for eBay, we want to bring that in-house and run that in-house. And so that is our strategy. I will say, as I talked about in the talk this morning, the pace though is blistering, right? Yeah. We are moving at an incredible pace. So often, we're buying today where we might have built in the past just to keep up with that pace. There is a lot of investment, as we all know, going into AI, and so it's hard for us to compete in certain areas. So we're probably buying a little bit more than we would like. Yeah. But we are continuing to bring things in house as it makes sense.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think it's I'm not sure if you're experiencing this right now, but it's another kind of theme that I've been hearing is that I think. And we talked about this during one of the panels, is that kind of board level kind of discussions. For example, I was talking to a CISO of, kind of a Fortune 50 company. And when he's with his board and they're talking about AI, they want him to move really fast. And he's like, I'm really scared to move fast. It's I don't, it's if I don't have the mental capacity to make sure that all of the boxes are checked and that it's secure enough and that that something terrible won't go wrong, or that my people are staffed and skilled enough, in order to run particular AI projects. But he feels like if he doesn't move fast enough, he'll get fired. So there's a real concern, there. And I'm not sure if that was just a data point of one, or if that's more systemic. But then, coming into the AI Networking Summit, the discussion has been more about how boards have started to shift. It's not so much as that, okay, go, 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 run, 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 but it's more about what are we spending and what are we getting for that return? So I'm wondering if if you're hearing the same thing, right now.
I think that tension's everywhere. I mean, absolutely, there is a overwhelming pressure to move quickly, and innovate, right? I mean, I think that's the word that everybody wants to use. And at the same time now, this is, I would say, more in the last, probably 6 months, there's also starting to be a realization that we're spending a lot of money on this stuff and we don't know yet what the value is. I mean, we can find value in certain areas, but in other areas it's less clear. And then there's the security concern side of it, that you brought up, which is, is what we're doing really keeping us safe, or are we opening up holes all over the place that we don't know about? And so the way I think about it right now is we need to move fast, in definitely in the experimenting area, small contained projects, and understand what works. But we need to be a little more practiced as we scale out and we deploy things, to everybody, or as a full scale site feature, because the cost can get out of control very quickly, but but B, the security concerns have to be met.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're really, we're constantly balancing that. But I would say also internally, different people have very different views, in terms of, well, what does it mean to move fast? What does it mean to be secure? What does it mean to be innovative? And so I think even inside of companies, there isn't a common understanding of that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so, I think, you used the word that I think really captures it well, and that's tension, right? It's like, it's the tension to kind of want to move fast, but then there's an economic counterweight to that, and there's a security counterweight to that as well. And I think we're probably all now trying to figure out how do we balance all three of those major concerns.
Yeah. I mean, I think, and again, I think we talked about this, again, in one of the sessions this morning, but I mean, none of these things are new, right? This is technology evolution that we've, experienced for years. I mean, the example I would use that, just goes back, a little bit is, again, we run our own private cloud. There's a trade-off there. There's a tension. We have a lot of new software engineers come into our company that are used to working in AWS or GCP, right. And they're like, wow, this is not near as many options as we had, when we were working in the public cloud. What can we do? How can we get this to be, more robust? And our answer is, this is very efficient for eBay, and yes, we would like to have those things. And that's that tension of, do we run a really efficient cloud that's good for running eBay workloads, or do we provide a lot of options and give people things that they're used to when they've been working outside? There's not a perfect answer to that, but that's again one of those tensions, and I think there's always that in technology.
Yeah. Well, especially when you bring things in house too, you have that control. You can optimize it. You have controls around security, controls around reliability, controls around feature sets, and so forth. So I think that's and for eBay that works really well. Like other companies like Bloomberg are in the same kind of camp. They love to control the experience that their users of their company and their brand are actually enjoying. And so I guess I wouldn't worry about what the software engineer said.
Right. Well, we try and listen to our customers.
I know. So have you, well, let me kind of run this by you. It seems like kind of the calculus that I'm starting to think about is that there's a certain amount of token cost or spend in the aggregate, and comparing that cost to what it would cost to do things in-house. And so I'm kind of thinking that as one part of the equation that doesn't address the other pieces that we were talking about around control and around security and so forth. But from just a purely
Well, I
economic
think
point of view.
token cost is an interesting one because, like you said, I mean, we can have internal token costs where we're self-hosting models.
Yeah.
We can get our tokens, from public cloud, from, or from, from the frontier companies themselves. But even there, right? I mean, not all tokens are equal. An Opus
Right.
token is a much more expensive token than a Sonnet token,
Right.
as an example. And so really, I think what we're looking at right now is, how efficiently are people using the tokens they're getting? Are they using the right, the right tool for the right job? Again, it was said this morning, I think, in one of the sessions. And I think that's what's probably most important. And again, an internally hosted model is probably going to be the lowest cost token. And if that's the right tool for the job, that's what we want to be using, right?
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if we need some very deep research or some very complex problem solved, then using Opus in the public cloud might be the right answer.
Yeah.
I think the challenge today, and we're at that early stage, is we're running fast, and we're not yet at the point of really optimizing that usage.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's like once we kind of understand usage, then an arbitrage play can be put in place where you can really kind of look at kind of token economics and like apply the right kind of model for the right job that you're trying to do.
Well, as we said earlier in this conversation, it's changed a lot even since the start of this year. I mean, our token usage is going up dramatically. As the adoption increases and people realize what they can do, as the models get better, they're doing more. And so we are seeing, very rapid growth. And so, it's going to push us, to get to that, that optimization faster, because, there's not unlimited budgets anywhere.
Yeah.
I don't think. Certainly not at eBay.
Well, yeah. Well, it seems like, at OpenAI and also at SpaceX or XAI, there's unlimited budgets there.
There may be somewhere, but not at eBay.
Yeah. And well, not in most large organizations
So I do think that, as we're seeing that spend increase, that is going to, drive us, faster to, the optimization, the efficiency, and it's really just an understanding, right? Because, again, token usage is driving incredible productivity gains. It's driving great efficiency in our organization. We're moving faster. So in some sense, we want to spend, we want to buy more tokens because there's value, but we just want to make sure we're using the right tokens for the right job.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. It's like, I heard a metric and, I'm not sure how realistic it is, but it's almost like in some organizations, they're saying you should be basically spending about half your salary on tokens. So if you're making $100,000, you should be basically spending $50,000.
And I think NVIDIA might have said that.
Oh yeah? I thought, is that where that came from?
Who's selling the GPUs, right? I don't think.
Well, that's a good response to that one.
I don't think we're there yet in terms of that level of spend, but maybe.
That's good. Well, anyway, so I think so that is really good. So I think, it's like we're in an early phase of understanding how to use the models to be really productive and what the various different use cases are, and then which models to apply to them. And I think once the industry starts to every company is going to have to grapple with that and understand that, then I think their deployments are going to follow those decisions, right? And so it seems like it's kind of a fait accompli that we'll be in a hybrid world for a long time here, because I think that will give the most flexibility and options to kind of move back and forth around, how do you provide tokens, to employees that are that need them and that are doing really good work.
No, I think that's absolutely true. And I think, again, we're going to continue to see more and more specialized models as we really understand the different types of problems we're trying to solve, whether those are internal problems or, problems on our site side. Different problems can be very, narrowed down to very specific types of models, much smaller models, with much greater efficiency. And I forgot who it was this morning that just, really articulated that, again, that the cost is going to keep coming down per token. And I think that, is absolutely true. I mean, we're already seeing it dramatically, even though the usage is going up a lot, the price is coming down. And I think we're going to continue to see that. But I also really feel like as we continue to create very specialized models for particular types of problems, we can also drive that even further.
Yeah, it'll be interesting too, because there is like token compression cost that the industry has been pushing forward. And as things get cheaper, volume usually increases, for something that's delivering so much value like tokens are. So yeah, it's such a multivariable problem, to think about it. And you just have to kind of like keep an eye on it really and just monitor it.
That is true. And I think the key to all of this, though, is it's not the technology, as we've been talking about. It's moving super fast and will continue to get better and better. It's, again, how do we bring our people along, on the journey? The very, top of our stack are moving quickly and adopting fast and, embracing it. The next, 20% are getting it, but it's hard to move the whole organization along. And I think that's the challenge, we face. And I think that's the challenge, every company faces today.
Everybody
is not the technology, but keeping up with the technology, having the people be able to absorb it, embrace it, and take advantage of it.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, these are not new, right? I mean, you think about every new technology that's come out. I mean, for goodness sakes, even something like Microsoft Word. I mean, how many people really use, all the capabilities of the product? Very few, right? I mean, most people use spell check, right? And and I think with AI, we're sort of in that same thing. Again, at a different scale, at a different pace. But if we can just get all of our people using even 10% or 15% of the capability, it's going to just drive dramatic change in our organizations.
Yeah. Awesome. I think that's a good place to end it.
All right. Well,
that was really, really great, John.
Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for being here. Thanks for really just such a thoughtful, keynote this morning, and for sharing all of that. There's so many quotes that are going to come out of that keynote.
Did you think it was the right level?
Oh, yeah.
I was really kind of trying to figure out where to, you could how much detail. Obviously the time was not long, but it's a broad topic trying to explain where we're going.
Yeah, but no, I think no, it was the right level for sure, because you touched on lots of different topics around AI and how eBay has been not only just struggling isn't the right word, but experimenting with AI in various different places. And so what has been the opportunity? What has been the challenge? Where's the win? So I think you kind of laid out some breadcrumbs for a lot of other folks to start to think about. And that was the perfect tone for this morning. Absolutely.
Good. Well, good.
Awesome. Great.
Well, great. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
It was.
Thank you, everyone.